Hey everyone, and welcome to the Always On Point podcast here with Kristen Ambo, sponsored by my parent company, Point Mortgage. We're so excited to be here with you today, and we're doing everything question and answer because you have all brought some amazing questions, and I want to get them answered. So I've been accumulating them, and we're going to do them in one podcast for you. So if you ever have any other questions, or this question answer series spurs other questions, shoot them on over to me. You can text them. You can email me. All of my information is online. We'll drop it in the comment box as well, so that way you can look through it and or reach out. So first things first, and I've just got them in a line. They're not really in order, so go with me here. I'll try to piece them all back together as easily as I can. So one question I get regularly is, when does my interest rate lock? Many people think it locks when you get pre-approved. That is not the case. Your rate lock has to be tied to an address. Therefore, you either need to be refinancing, in which case you can lock it right away, or two, a purchase, and you can't lock it until you have an accepted offer. So just note to self, whenever you are dealing with a rate lock, you cannot lock it until you have an accepted offer. This is where I'm going to say buyer beware. There's a lot of loan officers that quote you a really low rate on the pre-approval because they don't want you to shop during the pre-approval, and will change that rate dramatically at the accepted offer, or that's all of a sudden when you'll come in with a bunch of points and you'll have to pay a bunch of extra fees. So make sure your loan officer is talking to you on the rate, the why, how much does the rate cost, all the information pertinent to the lock-in day. You also want to make sure that if you have a 30-day closing, that your rate lock goes through that 30 days. Rate locks typically work on 15-day increments. So 15, 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, 75 days, 90 days. Some lenders will go to 120 days, mostly for new construction, but finding a rate lock any longer than that is really tough. The other thing to note, the longer your rate lock, the worse your rate could get. So your rate could tick up 1/8 to 1/4% if you go from a 30-day rate lock to a 90-day rate lock. That is dependent on where the rates are at every single day, so that can change. Again, have that open communication with your loan officer so you know what the right expectations are if you lock and close right away, or if you need some time. With rate locks, I will also say this to both the consumer and the real estate agents listening. If you are going to shift a closing date around, typically pushing it up is not a problem. But if you are going to push a closing date back, make sure you talk with the loan officer to see if their rate lock can accommodate that. If the rate lock cannot accommodate that, let's say you need an extra week or 2 weeks to extend the closing. If that was a 30-day rate lock, you might not have another 7 to 14 days in that rate lock, which means the loan officer would have to extend the interest rate. How much does that extension cost? How much time do you need? And who's paying for it? Is it the seller that needs to extend, so they might pay for it? Is the buyer that needs to extend? They will pay for it. Is it the lender who dropped the ball and needs to extend? Is it their job to pay for it? You want to understand those things. So if you're ever moving a closing date for any reason, again, open communication, making sure you're having that discussion with your agent, with your buyers, with your loan officers. 2, speaking about fees. Fees can change. When we are giving you an estimate on closing costs, and I'll just roughly say in the state of Wisconsin, they're somewhere between $3,200 and $3,500 on average right now. That is all encompassing. That is typically your origination, your underwriting, your processing, doc prep fee, closing with the notary, title work, appraisal. What else do we have in there? Credit bureau fees, fraud fees, flood certifications. All of those fees are all encompassing in that. If they are more than that, there's a good chance that you are paying for your interest rate. You want to know what that is. The other things that can change your fees from when we start to the closing table that a lot of people forget about is, 1, a home warranty. If the buyer has put a home warranty on their loan or on their home, that will show up in the loan docs at closing. I just had one where it was $825. That I did not give in those $3,200 to $3,500 fees at closing because I was not aware of it, one, and two, because I don't charge that. Sometimes the sellers will offer it, sometimes the buyers just want it, and real estate agents have agreements or partnerships with home warranty companies so they can recommend one to them. The thing about it is as an agent, you want to get that information to your loan officer as soon as possible so that they can update their fees. We also need to explain that to the buyer that now their fees that were, let's just say, $3,200 or $3,300 are now going to be somewhere around $4,000, $4,100. It's a lot of money. Clients don't know how to automatically assume that goes up in most cases, so we want to make sure we know about that change as soon as possible. The other thing, 2, condos and or 2 to 4 units. If you spoke with your lender and you did a pre-approval for a single family house, and instead you found a condo, which is still a single family home, or a 2-unit, which you're going to live there, but now is a 2-unit home, those property types can change an appraisal amount because the appraisal has to do more work. With a 2-unit, they typically have to bring on rent schedules. With a condo, there's HOA fees there. They need to make sure that the HOA is okay and that it's solvent, as well as our underwriter has to order documents from the homeowners association. If the homeowners association charges us a $200 to $250 fee to fill out that paperwork for us, that is going to be added on to your costs and may not be told to you up front. So those are things we find out after we get the accepted offer. So just so you're aware, the other thing is, let's say you had a home inspection. And in that home inspection, there were things that, could be fixed, but were not detrimental to the health or safety of the home. And the seller decides, instead of doing it, we'll give you a credit towards your closing costs. You handle them yourself. That's wonderful. We can accept that. We just need to know about those credits as soon as possible. If we don't, then your closing cost estimate might show more than what you're anticipating. So again, communication is open. There's typically an amendment to that, or there's a seller credit written inside the offer to purchase. That's why it's so important for us to know to get you those fees. So when we are giving you an estimate, that is because there's some fees we might come across during the loan process that we don't know yet, or we might be able to give you some credits during that loan process that we're not aware of yet at the initial application. So just keep that in mind, that it's not odd for your estimate to be a few $100s off of your final number. Just keep those things in mind. 2, cleared to close. I'm sorry, 3, cleared to close. We get a clear to close and instantly we get one of 2 messages back. 1, where's my loan commitment? And 2, where are my final figures? Okay. Clear to close means that the underwriter has signed off of it. There's nothing back they're going to come for and ask. That doesn't mean that it hasn't gone back to the processor yet, in which case the processor puts together the loan commitment and sends that out to the real estate agent and the client. So that can take sometimes a day, depending on when we get let's say we get the clear to close at 4:00 on a Friday. It might be Monday before you get the loan commitment. And we'll always get them to you as soon as we can, even before the loan commitment date, if possible. And the second one of those, like we said, is what are my final costs to close? So just for some ideas, once we get the clear to close then goes to our closing department. The closing department has to prep all the documents with all the final figures, final invoices, everything. Double check that against the accepted offer and any amendments to make sure that the numbers are accurate. Then it goes to the title company in the state of Wisconsin. Your state might have something a little bit different, but pretty similar from state to state. Then it goes to the title company's closing department. The title company then takes all the buyer side and all of the seller side and balances those numbers so that we can get to one number at the closing table that the buyer's going to bring into close and the seller's going to either get back or bring into close, depending on the scenario for the seller. Those processes take 12 to 24 hours for our closing department and 12 to 24 hours for the title's closing department. It is not odd for closing documents and final figures to take somewhere between 24 and 48 hours from the cleared to close. Soon as we get them, we literally get them, and within 10 minutes, they are sent off to the client every time we get them. We're always on the lookout for those. If we don't have them, contact us, or, your lender, for example, wouldn't have them. I had to call a client today and say, you're closing this afternoon. We got you the really close estimate. We're going to have the final exact number for you about 6 hours before closing. Why? Because we got an invoice on Friday afternoon at about 4 o'clock that changed our final figures. So, but where we were lucky is we did all of our due diligence and the rest of the numbers had been balanced with the title companies behind the scenes because we knew this was going to be a last minute file. We have the ability to do that. Not all lenders do, not all loan companies do. So you want to make sure that you understand that timeline. But again, I think I'm speaking for all lenders when I say they need 24 to 48 hours to get from a clear to close to the final docs on a regular basis. That keeps everything cool, calm, and collected. That keeps the processing departments happy, the closing departments happy, the title companies happy, and then it gets back to us. Rushing usually causes delays. I know that sounds crazy, but everybody's trying to rush, trying to get in, and when you try to force something on a rush, it typically then brings up more issues, or we are missing documents, and then it actually delays the process. So when you stay with a tried and true flow, goes through no problem every time. All right. Escrow holdbacks. Right now in the state of Wisconsin, and I'm going to be willing to bet just about any Midwest state, the amount of snow and the weather we've had lately, escrow holdbacks are a huge piece of the puzzle these days. What is an escrow holdback? That is where, let's say you're building a new construction. That's the easiest one we have. And the home was built, you are closing on your new home. But the patio and the walkway and the driveway have not been poured with concrete yet. That is because our weather has not allowed large loads, as I'm recording this, out on the streets. We have weight limits in the state of Wisconsin, and those weight limits have not yet been lifted. Expecting them any day, though. So that's why I say when I film this, because it might be a couple days, and then all of a sudden weight limits will be lifted. But concrete trucks haven't been able to pour yet. So you can still close on your home. We need the quote of what all of that concrete work is going to be if that's the last piece left. When we get that quote, we get it, and let's just say for easy numbers, it's $10,000. We need to hold back 1.5 times that amount of money in our escrow holdback, or think of it as a savings account with the title company. That way, the buyer is protected. The seller gives that money to the title company to hold in their escrow or their savings for that particular job. When that job is complete, we send the appraiser back out, third party. Appraiser then approves that the work has been done. We pay the contractor for their patio work. Whatever's left over then goes back to the seller for their proceeds. That's an escrow holdback. There are also other reasons for an escrow holdback right now. Wells and septics typically are the main one. We cannot hold back for a well and septic, meaning that we can't close on a loan until that well and septic is fixed. Most people think you can do an escrow holdback for that, but you cannot. There's always a caveat, right? There's always a gray line. Unless the well and septic are running perfectly fine, but somehow between the buyer and the seller, they've negotiated putting in a new well because of the age, or a new septic because maybe it's a mound and they want to go to conventional, something to that nature, okay? As long as the well and septic that are on the property are past all contaminant tests and are fully functioning, then we can escrow hold back for the new one. However, if the well has contaminated water and or the system, septic, well, doesn't matter, water, have issues where the well cap is missing or there is a crack in it, the well itself is leaking, anything to that could harm the buyers or the owners, we have to have that fixed before we can close. So if you're buying a house right now and it's April and the well companies or the septic companies can't fix it for 2 months, you cannot close on that property for 2 months. The only way you would be able to close on that property is if you had a cash buyer who didn't care and wanted to fix the well outside of that. So just be wary of that. Fannie and Freddie do not allow for that. Neither does FHA, VA, USDA. So your 30-year fix, anything in those secondary loan programs, that well will have to be fixed. So escrow holdback 1.5 times. Now let's say you have chipping paint on the outside of the house. I need a quote that says what the cost to repaint that house is, okay? And maybe it's not the whole house, maybe it's just a section. And for easy numbers, we're going to use $1,000. We're going to escrow holdback $1,500, 1.5 times. Now, if the buyer's willing to pay for it, we're going to escrow holdback the buyer's money. The buyer then can either hire that company to get that done, or if it's a small spot and they can, paint it on their own, that's fine. Then they paint it. We send the appraiser back out, just like with the concrete, make sure that the work is complete. Then we pay any invoices that are there. If there are no invoices, then we submit the money directly back to the buyer or seller, whoever's money we were holding on to. So that's another one. Kristen, I ordered a final inspection on my appraisal. I should get it back tomorrow, right? This is another big one, especially with new builds right now, where we're running into it the most. And again, going back to some of those escrow holdbacks, some of that incomplete work on a brand new construction, things to that nature. So when we say we need a final inspection, the final inspection needs to be house complete, occupancy cert in. The clients can literally move in right now. It's all good. If we have an appraisal done and the home is not yet completed, baseboards need to be up, carpet needs to be in, countertops, they can't just be there sitting. They have to be in and workable. All of that stuff. If that's not done, we will get an appraisal called subject to. And that subject to appraisal will say we will clear this appraised value. They'll give us the value, but they'll clear it and they'll clear the appraisal as soon as they go back out and re-inspect the property to make sure everything's complete. Again, protecting the buyer, right? It's the buyer's loan. It's our job to protect them. It's our job to make sure that they're getting a house that meets all the criteria of what one does in order to obtain a mortgage. In this case, the appraiser, we have to order it from the appraiser. They have to go out to the property. They have to re-inspect it. Then they have to finish that report and send it back to us. A lot of real estate agents seem to think that this should be able to be done in 12 to 24 hours. But remember that these appraisers are booked out 2 to 3 weeks sometimes right now. So it might be a day or two before they can even get you in their schedule. And then they get you in their schedule and then they go out to the house and it might be another day or two before they get the report back to us. Final inspections can sometimes take 24 hours to a week. Just depends on how quickly that appraiser is turning things around. So my advice to you, please, 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 if you think the house is going to be ready, have it ready. We want that as is appraisal as soon as we can possibly get it to keep everything on a timeline. It's so important that we have to have that. And again, then we're not pushing back closings. We're not extending. We're not coming down to the wire, running last minute numbers for everybody. It just keeps the process smooth. Sometimes if it's a new purchase, we'll order the appraisal knowing it's going to come back subject to, and then that gives us 2 or 3 weeks to talk to the builder, find out when, get it, put it back on the appraiser's books as soon as possible so it's already set up and done. That builder should then be able to tell us when it'll be finished. So those are some things we can do proactively versus reactively. I want to go back to interest rate locks quickly. I always get, Kristen, can my interest rate be transferred over to you if I'm working with another lender right now? The answer is no. The locks are changed from lender to lender. The rates change from lender to lender. It all depends. And there's so much I can't get into you with in the secondary department. And even stuff that's far above my head that goes into, why that can't be exchanged. But essentially it goes back to the very first thing and the very first topic of this podcast is interest rates. The locks stay with the address. And if you are with a loan officer at another company and their rate is locked in, the second you cancel that loan, you cancel that rate lock. Again, it doesn't stay with you right there. But it doesn't stay with you in the address at the new lender either, because it has to be a whole new loan, which means it has to be relocked. We cannot have a loan locked before an application date. So if there's a locked rate, it cannot be before the application date. So I would need an application and then I can lock that day, the day after on a deal that maybe is already in process. and we're picking up. We have had a lot of save deals. So that question has come up. Why can't you lock me at the same rate that the other lender locked me? And I will tell you that most of the times when the other lender, my famous air quotes, is locking you, they are locking you into terms that you didn't agree with and or terms that you don't qualify for. And the most of my save deals that I have are for lenders that should have never been locking in the first place. So unfortunately, it's that bait and switch. It's that, you got to be cautiously optimistic and assume that they're going to take it through to the end. And I will finish up by saying, if you chase the lowest rate lock, you probably aren't getting the full story up front, and things will change. So all I can tell you is work with a client, or as a client, I want to work with, and you should work with a loan officer who truly will break everything down for you, wholeheartedly, not lead you astray, give you clear, concise, transparent answers. I want the same thing if I'm a client from my real estate agent. I want them to be able to tell me everything, what my expectations are, what I can say, what I can do, how I can do it, what are the expectations. You set all that up with a team that you're working with before you get started. It will be the best process of your life. If you go about it in any other direction than that, you're most likely going to have issues, and it's going to be a struggle, and it won't be the best time you ever had. And we like to show our clients the best times we can. So I appreciate all those questions. Thank you so much for bringing them to me. Keep them coming, because they are always interesting to me to know what you guys are running into, what you're looking for. And usually they align with what we're working with on our end. So thank you again so much. My name is Kristen Ambos. Please like, subscribe, share to anyone that you think might need this. Go over to the podcast platform, and once you subscribe, you'll get updated every Wednesday when these come out. Have a great day. We'll see you next week.